tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I think people are just extremely anxious about doing whatever they can to protect their own properties.
As thousands of people are forced out of their homes by a wildfire near Fort Nelson, a few dig in to try to protect their properties. Plus,
they have come out of their existing boxes from last year, and we continue to respond as we can.
Wildfires that never fully went out last season are posing threats in our province again. And
we heard loud and clear from our community that nobody should be priced out of their neighborhoods they call home.
New homes at similar prices. Burnaby says a new affordable rental building will help against so-called dem-evictions.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. More evacuation orders have been issued in Fort Nelson as the fast-growing Parker Lake wildfire approaches. BC's Emergency Management Minister has warned of volatile conditions for crews, but as Yvette Brent shows us, firefighters are digging in and preparing for the onslaught, as are a few residents, despite the evacuation order.
The wind's picking up now, so they're rolling in, they're setting up on everybody's houses, they're setting up sprinklers, structure protection.
Fort Nelson mechanic Ian Langstaff is refusing to leave town. He says he has too much to lose.
So, we're going to do our best to protect our own house today.
The volatile Parker Lake fire has grown to some 53 square kilometers, and as of this afternoon, it's less than 3 kilometers from town.
You know, we started to feel a little more sick yesterday, thinking about it.
This teacher is one of thousands stuck in Fort St. John, 400 kilometers from home. No idea if she's going back.
We're trying to stay positive, but it's hard, but we're just so thankful that there are so many people who are there trying to save our community.
Crews in Fort Nelson are preparing for a last stand against the flames, but time is running out.
If the wind comes up, this will be over before anybody can get here. So we're doing what we can with everything that we've got in the community. We've got some great contractors here. They've got some excellent equipment. They're out there doing their best.
More crews are joining the fight against northeastern BC's wildfires, but the region is bone dry from years of drought.
With no precipitation, no major precipitation in the forecast ahead, winds that can pick up at any time, let's just say we are extremely concerned.
Evacuees are so hungry for news, people are posting their own security camera feeds, small windows into the empty town. People holed up in hotels with family and pets are eager for any good news.
Yeah, you automatically think about those other communities in Lytton and Fort McMurray, and you think of the worst case scenario. It's hard to get that out of your mind.
Holding hope and family close at the mercy of the wind. Yvette Brent, CBC News, Fort St. John.
And earlier in the day, the Doig First Nation issued an evacuation order for its entire reserve because of an out-of-control wildfire that was discovered on Sunday. All people living on that reserve are asked to go to Fort St. John immediately, about 60 kilometers away. The band says about 130 people live in that community. As wildfires threaten Fort Nelson from the west, there are other much larger fires burning to the east of that community. They're known as holdover fires, ones that never completely went out last year. Chad Possa does more on blazes that have come back to life and pose a threat again.
Holdover fires, ones that overwinter, also known as zombie fires, are part of the sudden BC wildfire threat. While the phenomenon is not new, it's a troubling legacy from last year's record-setting wildfire season.
The winter conditions are what put out a lot of holdover fires. In this case, what we've seen is that due to higher temperatures and persistent drought through from last year, many of these holdover fires were not put out the way that they normally are.
The main fire threatening Fort Nelson is not a holdover fire, but people on the ground there are worried that resources required for nearby zombie fires are taking them away from the Parker Lake fire. One resident who stayed behind to fight the fire says the government should have been better prepared.
Yeah, I hate to point the finger at our government, but they need to do better.
But the BC Wildfire Service says they knew this was coming.
We did anticipate the holdover fires. We planned for the holdover fires.
Wildfire fighters in BC say they did take action, but some holdover fires were simply too far underground to be noticed.
I am proud of the BC Wildfire Service team and everyone in the Northeast for coming together to do everything we could to plan for these fires. But obviously, you know, they have come out of their existing boxes from last year, and we continue to respond as we can.
Wildfire experts say they're not surprised that BC is facing more severe holdover fires when you consider the vast amount of land that burned last year. And as temperatures increase and drought persists, they're expecting more so-called zombie fires. It's another sobering marker of the wildfire threat that the province is facing, something the BC Wildfire Service says it is adapting to. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Victoria.
Darius Madavi is away this week, so Amy Bell joins us with a first look at the weather, and you have a special forecast for us, first of all.
Yeah, of course. Top of mind is the weather around this fire in Fort Nelson. So we're just going to walk you through what we'll see sort of in the next 12 hours or so. Obviously, a lot of widespread smoke, and we did see winds gusting anywhere from about 20 to 40 kilometers an hour earlier. They have settled right now. We're just looking at winds east at about 4 clicks. So that's the calm that we'll see before the winds really pick up again this evening. So unfortunately, what we are expecting in the overnight hours is for those winds to persist, west winds at about 40 kilometers an hour. That will taper off after midnight, and we'll be left with winds gusting at about 20 kilometers an hour for tomorrow. We will see that smoke a bit more localized early tomorrow morning, and then as the day progresses, we will see that smoke becoming more and more widespread, and of course, that air quality will continue to degrade, and at this point, not seeing any precipitation in the near or far future.
Okay, Amy Bell will check in later with the full forecast. Thank you. We're getting a better and starker look at just how dry our province is. New satellite photos are showing the severity of drought throughout BC. Take a look at these. These infrared images processed by the Canadian Space Agency show Stewart River in Fort St. James in May of last year on the left compared to April of this year, where the river appears shallower and narrower. Also, this is Prince George last May, where the Nechako and Fraser rivers meet. Just a year later, you can see exposed riverbeds as well as sandbars. The province is taking steps to make sure rents stay affordable for people living on low incomes on the downtown east side. Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon says some people living in single-room occupancy buildings or SROs are being exploited by landlords.
The City of Vancouver reached out to us over the last 2 months with serious concerns that people were being displaced, that landlords and SROs were using sometimes illegal tactics to evict people.
The province has introduced amendments to the Municipalities Enabling and Validating Act. If they're approved, there will be bylaws in place that will limit rent increases between tenancies at SROs. The provincial government has also introduced a bill to change BC's Name Act.
This bill will prevent convicted criminals and individuals who have committed offences causing serious harm to others from evading accountability and avoiding the negative consequences of their actions by legally changing their names.
Last month, the opposition BC United introduced a bill to amend the act after learning Alan Schoenborn was allowed to legally change his name. He killed his 3 young children in Merritt in 2008, but was found not criminally responsible. He's been held at the Forensic Psychiatric Hospital in Coquitlam since 2010. Last month, he shouted at members of the BC Review Board, and his lawyer quit at a hearing to decide whether he would continue to go out or could go out in public unescorted. Before the hearing, Schoenborn applied to the board to put a ban on publishing his new name anywhere, something the board declined. An advocate for the family of his slain children called the publication request unacceptable. Students at UBC Okanagan have become the latest group to set up a pro-Palestinian encampment on campus and demand the university divest from Israel. About 24 protesters gathered early this morning to pitch their tents. As with some other protesters at similar encampments across the country, they covered their faces and refused to provide their names, citing fears of being harassed online. Students at UBC's Point Grey campus set up an encampment late last month. Despite many people hoping to take a dip soon, Kitsilano Pool will not be reopening for the May-long weekend. The Vancouver Park Board says too much rain in the spring delayed repairs to the old pool. Kelly McTavish went down to Seaside to see what people think.
No, I didn't know that. I'm okay with it. I mean, my daughter might be upset, but I'm okay.
Just kind of feel like, yeah, it should be open by now. I think there's lots of money goes into bike paths and other infrastructure in the city.
So that's sad. It was sad when they closed it, actually, like after that big storm. And I can't believe it took so long to fix it.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I love about it is obviously being right by the water, swimming, being outside.
It's the best outdoor swimming pool I see in my life.
Pity it's not opening this weekend for the May long weekend, just because my daughters and I love to go to the beach and the pool at least 5 times a week.
I'm a mom who kind of depends on it. You know, we live in this neighborhood with the idea that, you know, in our summer our kids can come down to the pool and hang out.
Well, I walk in front when on low tides, and I'm not sure if it's the pool leaking or if it's just groundwater going through, but you can see a lot of water flowing out of that area.
I was looking at it yesterday. It was getting quite full, so I thought it might be ready. There's quite a lot of water in there.
Yep, I probably won't get to swim outside till it opens again.
The Vancouver Canucks remain flawless on the road these playoffs as they beat the Edmonton Oilers 4-3 Sunday night to take a 2-1 series lead in their Stanley Cup series. But they will have to play Game 4 without defenseman Carson Soucy after things got mighty chippy after the final buzzer.
And win Game 3.
Oilers star Connor McDavid slashed Soucy there. Soucy and Nikita Zadorov then cross-checked McDavid. Soucy has been suspended for 1 game. Zadorov has been fined $5,000, the maximum allowed under the league's collective bargaining agreement. Connor McDavid, not punished. Housing remains a huge issue in this province, from availability for renters to new developments. After the break, we're going to speak with someone who's found a creative way to house herself and her family on wheels. Stay with us. This week, we are looking at the diverse ways people call home in this province, from off-grid living to co-housing. Tonight, we're speaking with Thomasina Pigeon. Last August, we spoke with her when she was living in a van. She now lives in an RV in Squamish with her daughter and her partner. Thomasina, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. You've been living in a vehicle for, I think, 24 years now. What drew you to that?
Originally, it was because I couldn't find housing. I was in Whistler and there was nowhere to live. But then after that, I discovered that it was a way to live that allowed me to live a kind of lifestyle that I wanted to. So I could be like, have more economic freedom and also the mobility. I really like moving my location, changing spots every night, and like having the opportunity to like sleep near the stars or under the trees or wherever it is that I'm traveling to or where I'm living. So it's kind of, it has like a physical freedom to it that I don't have when I'm in a house.
Now, living in an RV has some freedoms, as you mentioned, some unique challenges. What are some of the joys and struggles you live with?
For sure the mobility part. Like I love waking up in a different location every night. I love being able to change my scene, and also just the physical freedom and also the economic freedom. So for work-wise, like I don't have to give all my money to a landlord, which is really great. But also there's a lot of struggles in Squamish, especially like it's illegal to sleep in a vehicle. So that has really impacted this sense of freedom. Like it's really kind of took what I see as a life of freedom and turned it into a life of hiding. And it's, that's like probably the biggest downside right now of living in a vehicle in Squamish.
And how does that affect your family?
I think it affects me more than anyone because I'm like the one that's most like involved in it. Cedar tends to try not to let it get to her. My partner, it doesn't bother him as much, but for me, I just feel like it's so wrong morally, and just to criminalize people for sleeping in a vehicle, like if it's out of choice or if it's out of need, like for either, whatever the reason is, I just feel like living in a vehicle should not be illegal. Sleeping in a vehicle should not be criminalized. Sleeping should not be criminalized. So, I mean, yeah, every time I go to sleep, it's like, oh, okay, our bylaw gonna come and get us tonight, and it's always something that's in the back of my head. So it's something that, yeah, I'm trying to fight it, and that's more so I could have this freedom to be safe and secure where I sleep and where I live.
That concern has to be exhausting. What do you say, or what is your message to perhaps the district bylaw officials if and when they do come around?
Well, I mean, I've definitely had like numerous bylaw interactions, and the one thing I say is like, well, you know, you just choose to keep driving. Like you don't need to be enforcing these bad bylaws, which are really unethical and they don't work. And I've said tons of stuff to the district just about the morality of the bylaw. And I mean, going to sleep every night, like everyone needs a secure place to sleep and to feel safe where they call home and to feel like they belong. And to feel like I don't belong in the community where I've lived for like, gosh, I've been in Squamish since 2000, so like 24 years. It's really unrooting to your sense of belonging and place. And to me, I just don't think this is right to be able to just displace people for the reasons that they're using.
Thomasina Pigeon, we appreciate your time and your perspective. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Still with housing, in Burnaby, officials say renters kicked out of their homes by redevelopment are moving into new digs at old prices. They say a new affordable rental building is a sign of progress against so-called demevictions. But as Dan Burritt explains, at least one advocate is pushing for more protections.
For former residents of a now torn-down three-story building near Metrotown, officials promise that a homecoming is coming.
Officially, renters are moving in June. I've heard that some people are actually receiving their keys as early as Friday, which is just a couple days from now.
The federal Citizen Services Minister says all residents of the former building were offered the chance to move in here into similar-sized new units at the same rent they were paying, plus the provincially allowed rent increases that would have accrued. About 2/3 said yes.
We got to keep looking for opportunities to accelerate, to do more. But right now, I'm just very happy for the people that are having the opportunity to live in this unit.
Officials say this building near Metrotown is the first built under Burnaby's rental use zoning policy against demevictions. Mayor Mike Hurley explained that under the policy, renters kicked out for redevelopment need to be provided new homes at the same price.
Redevelopment
is a fact of life for any city with aging residential buildings. But we heard loud and clear from our community that nobody should be priced out of their neighborhoods they call home.
Now, if you're familiar with this area of Burnaby near Metrotown Mall and the SkyTrain line, you'll know that it's changed a lot over the last 10 or 15 years. The housing used to be pretty much all like this, 3-story walk-up apartment buildings built 50 to 70 years ago. But increasingly, it's become more like this tower behind me. And there's concerns that as the towers have ascended, so have housing prices. In the last decade, advocates and residents strongly protested dem-evictions. When the current mayor was elected in 2018, the issue loomed large. Murray Martin was a protester back then and is still an advocate today. He says Burnaby's renter protections might be the best in Canada, but more is needed, especially with what he says is the problem of developers buying out sometimes desperate tenants to avoid their obligations to top up their rent while housing is being built.
Lack of confidence in developers to follow through in paying their rent top-ups or building them a place. So some people take it for that reason. Other people take it for reasons like the rent top-up isn't enough, so they just need immediate injection of cash because they're still out-of-pocket expenses from the eviction.
There is no talk of new policy today, but officials insist that this building is something to build on. Liam Britton, CBC News, Burnaby.
A BC woman asks for your help after she says someone stole her pet chicken. More on the poached poultry after the break. A North Vancouver couple wants your help finding their beloved pet chicken after it was stolen from their backyard. Take a look.
My wife and I were getting ready to head to bed. We have cameras installed in the chicken coop. We like to be able to keep an eye on them. Predators are a real risk for chickens, raccoons, and whatnot. So we have cameras, we have alerts, and we noticed one of them was missing. Scrolled back in the footage, couldn't see her all day. Scrolled back to 3 a.m. the previous morning. Two young gentlemen came into the coop and they stole her. So they reached out, grabbed her roughly by the legs, possibly injuring her in the process, and they walked away with her fighting the whole way.
Shocked, appalled, heartbroken, sad, in an angry disbelief that anyone would do something like this. Like, it's a pet, and with where the coop is, you wouldn't know they were here unless you were a member of the community. Like, unless you walked by and looked over the hedge, you would never know they're here. The coop isn't even visible from the road. Like, and that's the especially heartbreaking part of it, because I've always been very proud about how these chickens are a valued part of the community. I love watching people lift their kids up over the hedge to watch the chickens, or ask to come in and meet them, or have that exposure for little kids of chickens as friends, not just food. And the school groups go by, you know, they pause and look over. And when I was campaigning yesterday, handing out flyers, everyone's just horrified that something like this would happen.
Amy Bell is back with our BC-wide weather forecast. Amy?
Yeah, it's going to be a fairly lovely day for most areas of the province. Just taking a look at sort of the last 24 hours, we did have a few showers that popped up in areas of the Okanagan and out through the Kootenays, and we do have a risk of that again tomorrow in a few areas. But by and large, for the next several days, we are going to see things staying very clear and very warm. Taking a look tomorrow, here's some of those holdover showers that I mentioned. Right around Prince George, we could see some early in the morning, and could even see a few overnight. Same for Bella Coola and Terrace. Fort St. John, unfortunately, not getting any precipitation, and we'll see those winds picking back up again tomorrow around 20 kilometers an hour. So easing overnight and then picking up again for tomorrow afternoon. Taking a look at our 5-day forecast, what we're going to see is warm weather and a bit of cloud coming in by the end of the week. Again, we don't have a chance of any precipitation. So it is sunny, just not as hot as we saw it this past weekend. But for tomorrow, we will see sunshine. Highs about 17, and that's near the water. As you head out further into, say, the Fraser Valley, we'll see that temperature closer to 20 degrees. Today, we saw that cloud lingering for much of the day. We will not see that again tomorrow or Wednesday. Thursday, we do see a bit of cloud sneaking into the mix, but still a high of 20 degrees. And Friday and Saturday, both looking at a mix of sun and cloud with those temperatures in the mid to high teens. Just depends how close you are at the beach.
There you go. Amy Bell, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
And you can always find our news program online at cbc.ca/BC. Thanks for watching. Tanya Fletcher will have your next local news at 11 o'clock tonight online, and you can watch on our website as well as YouTube and CBC Gem, our free app. Good night.